has a record company and he would like to record you. And I said, I don't want to meet him.
I've got your picture.
Spotlights paint bright halos, but every glow casts a shadow, and nowhere are the shadows darker than Nashville's Music Row. Today we unlock 20 buried scandals executives hoped you'd never hear. Forget polite museum tours. This is the real backstage pass where golden records were bought with secrets and silence. Stay till the end, because the last reveal ties everything into a single chilling question. In 1957, Patsy Cline strode into the Grand Ole Opry wearing a scarlet cowgirl dress and an ego to match. Radio adored her, but the gray-suited gatekeepers despised that she skipped years of groveling for stage time. They sliced her sets, buried her singles, and demanded she apologize for calling herself a star. Cline clapped back on live TV, dedicating Walkin' After Midnight to The Boys Who Said I Couldn't, earning cheers and freezing stares. An executive warned, "Darlin', the Opry can make you or break you." The feud simmered until her fatal plane crash 6 years later, leaving fans wondering how fierce the war might have grown. In 1965, high in California's Los Padres desert, Johnny Cash kicked over a sputtering camp stove and ignited 500 acres of scrub. 49 rare condors died in the blaze. Asked for comment, a dazed Cash muttered, "I don't give a damn about your buzzards." Prosecutors filed a multi-million-dollar suit, yet Columbia lawyers traded a quiet check for a quieter gag order. Cash later laughed it off as a camping mishap, but federal ledgers still list him as the man who nearly burned a national treasure. Loretta Lynn was just 15 when 21-year-old Oliver Doolittle Lynn married her in a Kentucky holler. Publicists later printed that she wed at 18 to dodge statutory alarms. They spun tales of a glamorous Nashville courtship, hiding years of poverty and moonshine bruises. When reporters sniffed around in the 70s, MCA mailed congratulatory gift baskets and urged them to celebrate a classic love story. Only in her memoir did Loretta reveal the truth long after the fairy tale had earned the label millions. Elvis Presley's lone 1954 Opry appearance lasted 2 minutes. He rocked Blue Moon of Kentucky, hips swirling, teenagers screaming, veterans seething. Talent manager Jim Denny snarled, "Son, stick to truck driving." Next day, phone lines burned with complaints that Elvis would turn the venerable show into a dance hall. Officially, he didn't fit, but insiders call it a ban born of bruised pride. Decades later, the Opry hung his portrait while quietly leaving the exile in place. Proof Nashville can exile even its brightest comet. Spade Cooley called himself the king of Western swing, but on a spring night in 1961, he became its darkest cautionary tale. Fueled by jealousy and booze, he tied up his wife Ella Mae at their ranch, beat her savagely, and forced their teenage daughter to watch. Blood-splattered rhinestone suits hung in the closet, a grotesque gallery of vanished glamour. Conviction followed swiftly, yet late-night radio kept spinning his hits, and promoters booked prison concerts, claiming audiences could separate art from crime. When Cooley received a special furlough in 1969 to play a charity show, politicians lined up for photos with the inmate star. Heart failure struck minutes after the encore, sparing Nashville fresh shame over why royalty checks still flowed to a murderer. By the late 70s, George Jones argued with voices no one else heard. He once drove a lawnmower 8 miles to buy booze after his car keys were hidden. Shows were missed, diaries ranted, and doctors urged commitment. Instead, the label plastered over the cracks by releasing He Stopped Loving Her Today, transforming a breakdown into a ballad. Jones survived, but the possum nickname masks scars deeper than any country chorus. October 1978, Tammy Wynette arrived at a Nashville ER, bruised and shaking, claiming a masked gunman had abducted and beaten her. The purse was untouched, witnesses non-existent, and detectives smelled a staged drama. Epic Records spun it into a cautionary tale, selling souvenirs that read, "Stand by your car." No suspect emerged, no explanation followed, and the mystery clings to her sad songs like an unhealed bruise. On New Year's Day, 1953, Hank Williams was found lifeless in the back of a Cadillac. Witness statements conflict about when he actually died, and empty morphine vials vanished before police arrived. Label men persuaded the coroner to record heart failure, tidying up the legend. What really happened somewhere between Knoxville and Oak Hill remains the road trip Nashville refuses to map. In the early 80s, Dolly Parton disappeared from public view for months. Staff whisper she tried to exit for good after a doomed affair. Doctors were flown in under aliases, and the official line blamed exhaustion. When Dolly returned, rhinestones hid faint wrist scars, and she joked about diets instead of despair, singing herself back into the light. In 1972, a woman appeared at Conway Twitty's bus clutching a blonde toddler she swore was his. Private tests reportedly proved her right, and hush money checks flowed for years. Court files were sealed under a farm equipment case number, and Twitty dodged questions by crooning about family values while refusing to sign the child's birthday cards. In the mid-70s, Opry backstage mirrors doubled as powder trays. A 1977 raid seized a suitcase of coke and several musicians, but a late-night deal with prosecutors made the arrests vanish. Police logs disappeared, reporters lost press passes, and management mailed journalists free tickets as a reminder to enjoy the show, not the scandal. When Dolly Parton quit Porter Wagoner's show, he allegedly waved a shoebox of private letters and raw demos, threatening to leak them. The standoff ended with Dolly paying a hefty settlement to buy her freedom. Rumor says the tape stayed in a bank vault until Porter's death, proof that even Nashville's brightest halo once paid ransom to shine alone. Keith Whitley's 1989 death was branded a whiskey miscalculation, but bandmates recall pill bottles on the nightstand and frantic label calls demanding he sober up for Europe. Toxicology pages listing drug traces vanished, and the final press line blamed only bourbon. Whitley became an outlaw martyr while the true cautionary tale stayed sealed in a filing cabinet. Hank Snow sang about gentle trails, yet his son Jimmy later claimed the home trail was lined with belts and bruises. Manuscripts describing the abuse were mailed to newspapers and returned unopened. Meanwhile, ad buys for Snow's box set conveniently flooded those same pages, crowding out any mention of the accusations. Rumor tells of two rising country couples who vowed to succeed together or exit together. One pair carried out the dark promise, the other signed a lucrative deal weeks later. Autopsy notes were sealed, surviving interviews sounded rehearsed, and radio still plays the duo's hits, never mentioning the pact's shattered half. Merle Haggard joked that guardian angels with broken noses watched his back. Prison officials later whispered those angels belonged to a mob fixer who covered Haggard's gambling debts in exchange for off-the-books casino gigs. Tour schedules omitted those smoky shows. Envelopes of chips kept his band paid and his secrets safe. Minnie Pearl's fried chicken empire ballooned on junk bonds, then collapsed under missing payroll taxes. Just as indictments loomed, the storage unit holding her ledgers burned overnight. With evidence gone, charges died, and Minnie strutted back on stage joking about greasy fingers, never about the flames that saved her neck. 3 days before Jim Reeves's fatal 1964 plane crash, he recorded a secret track naming Crooked Promoters. He told engineers, "If anything happens to me, play this." After the crash, the tape vanished. Witnesses recall men in suits emptying the vault. Only a log stamped "Destroy after listening" remains, leaving fans to debate whether Reeves predicted foul play or scripted one last myth. Insiders say June Carter Cash collapsed when Johnny's health failed, slipping into days of silence the family labeled routine surgery. Hospital staff signed thick gag orders, and tribute CDs were pressed before she spoke again. Her temporary retreat was recut into a tale of graceful strength, leaving the public none the wiser about the depth of her despair. In the pre-internet era, Nashville policed ambition with whispers. Women who complained about harassment saw tour dates vanish, and DJs ordered to give her a rest. Press photos were pulped and masters shelved until the artist's name faded. One songwriter kept a notebook of victims. It disappeared during a so-called burglary. Ask label elders today, and they just changed the subject, letting silence hide the crime. These tales prove the twang we hum in traffic was forged in courtrooms, deserts, and burned ledgers. The industry counted on short memories, trusting neon signs to drown the screams. Now you've walked those unlit halls, ask yourself which confession is sliding into a shredder tonight. Behind every perfect harmony waits a note so sharp it can slice the future, if we dare to listen. Remember, buried truths seldom stay buried when hungry ears keep digging for echoes deeper. Every rumor you just heard still ripples under neon today. Step into any lower Broadway honky-tonk past midnight, and retired sound engineers trade hush stories between guitar changes. They swear Patsy's master acetates hold cigarette burns where jealous rivals scorched her range. They insist a warehouse on the Cumberland River was emptied the week Tammy Wynette revised her kidnapping tale. Forklifts carrying crates marked archive cleanup. Nashville calls it inventory reduction. Skeptics call it evidence in exile. Consider the Killing Floor Lounge, a cinder block dive demolished in 1993. In its heyday, it hosted off-book poker nights where touring bands paid buy-ins with handfuls of pills and wadded cash. Legend claims a young Waylon Jennings lost publishing rights to an entire album on a busted straight. Weeks later, those papers surfaced at a rival label already notarized. Waylon shrugged publicly, blaming bad math. But offstage, he punched a mirror so hard the bartender kept shards as souvenirs. The lounge's basement hid a broom closet vocal booth plastered with egg cartons. One humid afternoon in 1974, session singer Lila Grace cut a demo accusing an unnamed star of violent advances. She mailed the reel to 3 stations. 2 copies vanished from mailrooms. The third arrived erased. Lila vanished, resurfacing years later selling turquoise belts at flea markets. Ask her now, and she flashes a gold tooth where a front one broke, then changes the subject to the weather in Tulsa. Flash forward to 1983 when CBS filmed a primetime special honoring the Opry's Golden Jubilee. They invited every living legend except George Jones, claiming schedule clash. In truth, Jones demanded airtime to plug a charity fund he said rescued abused musicians. Accountants found no such fund. Rather than expose a hero or themselves, CBS replaced him with a medley of newcomers and sealed the paperwork. The empty stool on stage became a metaphor viewers applauded without understanding. Meanwhile, Vanderbilt Medical Center keeps archives labeled VIPRIDERS. They document overdoses, breakdowns, and hush payments for stars patched up away from tabloids. One nurse recalls wheeling a barely conscious Keith Whitley into a private wing, while label reps rehearsed a statement blaming seasonal sniffles. She resigned that night, saying she could no longer watch platinum records pressed from panic attacks and pill ash. Museums mint myths too. Walk the Hall of Fame rotunda, plaques glow, but audio guides omit entire tragedies. Elvis's band becomes a stylistic mismatch. Spade Cooley's crime is trimmed to legal troubles. Minnie Pearl's tax saga morphs into business hurdles. Visitors leave believing success is tidy, never suspecting curators track which exhibits make guests linger least. Numbers used to decide which truths stay faintly lit and which fade entirely. Yet stories leak because people ache to tell them. A retired bus driver confesses he ferried Conway Twitty to secret rendezvous with the alleged love child's mother, delivering diapers instead of merch. A junior A&R rep admits shredding a demo marked Reeves' lockbox minutes before a surprise audit. A drummer carved dates into a backstage wall, each notch honoring a friend lost to Opry powder trades. When painters covered them, the drummer traced fresh marks through wet primer. Technology helps the ghosts talk louder. Digital remasters reveal background whispers engineers once buried. On a Patti Loveless gospel outtake, a voice near the mic warns, "Hide the bottle," seconds before the first chord. Listeners online debate whether it's Whitley or an anonymous tech, but either way, Sunday morning purity now carries a Saturday night tremble, and streams spike because scandal sells streams. Then there's the fabled Bluebird file, a rumored dossier of NDAs and cash disbursements held by shadowy managers. Some say it contains GPS coordinates to private rehab ranches where stars detox under fake names, guarded by ex-military contractors. Others insist it's simply a spreadsheet of radio stations that accept promotional envelopes. Journalists chasing the file report crashed hard drives and silent phones. Its existence remains unconfirmed, yet everyone on Music Row behaves as though it is real. Even fresh talent feels the vice. A recent TikTok famous balladeer ghosted her socials after teasing a docu-series on Music Row misogyny. The label blamed wellness retreat obligations. Insiders whisper she traded lifetime publishing rights for debt forgiveness, a contract nicknamed the Velvet Cage. The doc footage allegedly shows executives coaching interns to delete backstage clips anytime liability keywords pop up. Whether the series will surface or join the missing tapes, nobody bets publicly. Remember the Whisper Network silencing outspoken women? Its modern descendant hides in encrypted Slack channels, where executives tag troublesome artists with a red siren emoji. Screenshots leak. Lawyers send takedowns faster than retweets spread. The emoji appears next to performers who request fair splits, demand security, or mention consent. Officially, labels champion empowerment. Unofficially, they still punish the loudest voices, just with digital hush rather than radio bans. Law enforcement sometimes joins the dance. Metro detectives admit, off-record, that certain files marked tourism-sensitive stay sealed unless a judge intervenes. One investigator spent months on backstage assault cases only to watch charges soften after the Chamber of Commerce warned of economic ripples. He now works cybercrime, noting that hard drives resist intimidation better than witnesses, though even data can disappear when the right donor funds the right upgrade. Cover-ups occasionally fail in spectacular fashion. In 2004, floodwaters swept through a storage warehouse holding thousands of magnetic masters. Insurance lists cited missing reels, including an unreleased Patsy Cline cut titled Locked Doors. Divers later found rusting cans downstream, but officials barred retrieval citing environmental hazard. Whatever secrets lay on those submerged tapes now mingle with river silt and catfish lullabies. Ghosts linger where culture shifts slowly. During a 2019 museum gala, influencers posed beside Hank Williams's Cadillac. One leaned in, saw a stain on upholstery, and asked if it was authentic. The curator smiled and said, "Just a shadow." The influencer posted the clip. Followers swear the shadow moved between takes. Maybe lighting, maybe something Hank left behind, maybe the universe insisting legends and lies share the same back seat. Tour buses still idle outside anonymous offices where lawyers craft apology tweets before artists even sin. PR firms rehearse crisis statements like tornado drills, timing apology to comeback ratios in spreadsheets. One consultant sells a seminar called Handcuffs to Headliners in 90 Days. Seats sell out every quarter. The syllabus: deny specifics, donate visibly, drop a vulnerable single, launch the redemption tour, repeat. Scandal, now a subgenre with its own chord chart. Yet the circle of silence shrinks. Smartphones capture slurred meet and greets, bus lot brawls, off-mic rants. Labels retaliate with NDAs banning discussion in any medium now known or later devised. Legal poetry trying to outpace technology, it rarely works. One clip of a drunken legend insulting a stagehand can fracture curated nostalgia faster than vinyl plants can press a commemorative reissue. So where does that leave the music? Maybe truer. Songs about heartbreak, regret, faith, and dirt roads resonate because they're forged in those very fires. When George Jones croons about love persisting beyond death, perhaps he serenades the voices only he could hear. When Dolly beams through sequins, perhaps she dares cameras to glimpse scars they once helped carve. Art survives not despite darkness, but because of it. Each note a flare fired from a ravine. Our journey began with 20 scandals, but echoes keep multiplying, because every secret breeds cousins. The final question is simple. How many stories still lie on cassette shelves, waiting for an archivist with a thumb drive instead of a match? Nashville perfected the key change. When truth hits the wrong pitch, they just modulate and grin. But keys keep jingling. Listen next time a star pauses mid-lyric. Silence isn't always an artistic choice. Sometimes it's a heartbeat counting hush money. Then let the silence spark questions the industry can no longer ever hush.